Welcome to First State Kopites, a podcast for Delaware's Liverpool supporters and their friends.
Thanks for joining us on First State Kopites. It's episode 4 of our 4th season. I'm Paul, and I'm joined today by Justin, who's in New York, and Daz, who is in Baltimore. And I'm sure they're open to some baseball chat, but I'm going to try and move it along. The countdown is on for the real stuff. It's 6 days to the Community Shield and 13 days to the season start. We're going to talk in our first part about kind of the Reds' preparation. I really like the Anfield Wraps reference to Liverpool leathering Leipzig. It's always good to have some alliteration. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk in part 2 about the upcoming week. We've got Man City at the King Power, preceded by another Red Bull team. Well, the team that's allowed to call themselves Red Bull, Salzburg in midweek. And then part 3, we'll get onto kind of any other business. Minnesota United may get a reference. Bobby Firmino may get a reference. Let's leave it there. And before we're done, we do want to talk. There's been some changes around the way Liverpool are distributing tickets to members, and this seems to have sparked some conversation about international fans. So we're going to try and have a chat about that before we're done, if we've got time. Let's get back to this last week. Just one preseason game. Liverpool 5, RB Leipzig 0. I guess there's no other place to start than that failure, Darwin Nunez's 4-goal haul. And I'll start with you, Justin. Overall, what did you make of the game? But it really is hard to look past his 4 goals in one half of football, isn't it?
It is. I haven't watched it because a preseason game that occurs while I'm at work is just not going to be something that I can make happen. But I've obviously, seen Salah's goal that came after 8 minutes, and apparently the fairly stodgy first half. Though I'll let Daz talk about that because I know he did get to watch it. But Nunez scoring 4 goals it's huge because you want to see a guy at least step into a new team, and even if they don't mean anything, look like he belongs, right? And he's starting to look more comfortable and like he belongs. I mean, the guy had a few bad touches in an outing where he was just starting to run for fitness with a new team on the other side of the world. Overreacting to that just feels kind of, it's just the sign of people need content rather than just realizing that it's a preseason game and he's a young player in a new system.
It's Twitter, right? I think that's a big part of this. And of course, that sparked, when he did score 4 goals, that sparked an equal amount of Twitter traffic around Manchester United fans not staying off Twitter now for a few weeks because all the things they talked about in the first game about Nunez didn't turn out to be true. So I know you did watch the game, Daz. Obviously, we talk about Nunez. What, including him, what did you take away from that game? It's only our 3rd preseason game, but there's not a lot of others left. So it's probably got more weight to it than most preseason games we've had in the last 10 years.
I'll shelf Nunez for right now because I think that you probably run out of superlatives. But I was really excited to see the kids play. I think I texted you guys on our thread. It's like, I'd bring the kids in at this point, let's see what they can do. And I'm really excited about Carvalho. He's a very intelligent, silky player, and I know his ability belies his years. It's really nice to see Harvey Elliott. He just looks like he's feeling himself, for the lack of a better way of putting it. And it's got to be wonderful to have Klopp's backing and Klopp's confidence, it's going to be huge for all of these kids. But I was really excited, and Curtis looked like he was ready to play as well. And you can make all that, you can have all the caveats you want about, well, it's preseason, the team was already down 3-0 or 4-0, whatever it was, by the time they came on. So you were already beating up on a kind of a dejected, despondent team. But to be quite frank, I don't care. It's whatever, to be able to see these kids play. They're almost like the chaos crew. because they're like a. Have you ever seen How to Train Your Dragon? It's I'm taking it to a kid's level here, but they say that basically they ride the baby dragons because the baby dragons are too chaotic to be put under anything spell. And that's kind of what I thought about with these kids was like they're almost, you don't know what you're going to get from them because they're kind of an unknown quote unquote quantity together. And it was just really nice to see them play.
Yeah. And
to do well. And I'm excited for that. I think that Carvalho will get more minutes than people were probably expecting. Because we do have kind of an aging core. Our midfield is on the wrong side of the 20s, the middle to late 20s. So it's going to be nice to see these guys if they can pull it together. And again, it's I'm going to temper it and say like they haven't really come up against really quality competition, but I'm looking forward to seeing them do so.
Yeah.
In terms of Nunez, the look of relief on his face when that penalty went in was, I felt it. I didn't just see it; I could feel it on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
It was, and then you could just see all of the pent up frustration or whatever it was, emotion just evaporated out of him. And his third goal was a true goal scorer's like poacher's goal. Like he just managed to redirect it because it was almost past it by the time he got to it.
Yeah.
And just like to stick out a foot and to be able to do that. His second goal was cultured. It was, and again, you can say like maybe the goalkeeper was their second string goalkeeper, so a better goalkeeper might have got it. Would definitely probably would have saved the third, or his fourth rather. But it's again like all these compilations, these failure compilations that people were putting together. It's where are you now? And I think someone put out one where he miscontrolled the ball, hit him on the heel, like that 5-second clip where I think it was Carvalho passed it to him and hit him on the heel. Oh no, it was Luis Diaz hit him on the heel and it bounced right back to him. It looked like kind of comedic, but that's what someone's like. Yeah, well, look at this. I'm like, well, yeah, they got crushed under the weight of the 4 goals that he scored. You muppet.
Yeah, I think in previous episodes when we've been talking about Carvalho and Nunez, you'll get no complaints from me because I think their numbers and what they both did last year, albeit not in a strong competition, were outstanding. I mean, like his goals versus XG, if he even comes close to matching that, Nunez will fulfill what I said. He could score 30 goals based on that. It should be pointed out, and we'll come back to you, Justin, that Leipzig did beat Southampton. I know it's Southampton a couple of days before this, like 3-1. And I thought it was interesting that their social media was like, when can we have a rematch without Nunez? Which I think is probably not a bad sign for him. But they do seem to have a habit, though, of shipping large numbers of goals on rare occasions. Like I think they conceded 5 against Solskjaer's United in Champions League 2 years ago. That when in fact they effectively knocked United out of the Champions League by winning the return leg in Leipzig. So question for you then, Justin. Klopp's analysis, he wasn't getting carried away. He talked about we're not there in terms of fitness, tactics and timing, but we're not going very long to fix some of these things. So I don't think he was kind of saying, oh, we're on our way. I think he's saying there's a lot of work to do. What's your sense of where they are, given, let's say, the Community Shield is 6 days' time?
I think we're going to find out real quick. That's for certain. City's a good measuring stick.
Yeah.
But I think we're probably there. This is an experienced coaching staff and a pretty mature set of players. And the types of players that we tend to recruit all fit a really similar mental profile. So I think that what's going to happen is by the time we leave Austria, we'll be there. They're thereabouts to be ready for the season. But I think it was reading an interview, and this is Anfield with Andy Robertson, where he was talking about how much we get out of this time in Austria. Klopp refers to it as this is his time, because it's really the only time once the season starts like that Klopp gets any sort of extended tactics and training time, other than just getting ready to play games every few days. So I think it's really important that they get through this, and it seems like from the videos of training they're releasing that the team is getting run heavily by the manager, which is what you want because you need them in running shape. And of course, James Milner, as a cyborg, is crossing the finish line first. So I think I think they're going to probably be there or thereabouts. But I think that the value of these training camps in, at altitude really end up helping the side by the end of the season, because we do tend to look very fit for a long time.
Yeah. I mean, and Milner's performance actually when he came on in like both the last games has been quite astonishing, and maybe someone's finally persuaded him that right back is a midfield position in the Liverpool team, because he certainly seems to be approaching it with perhaps more relish than he did a couple of seasons back when he was doing the left back thing. Daz, I'll finish off this part with you. You mentioned the kids. Truthfully, there was only one really young player in the team on was it Wednesday, whenever it was, which is Bakatic, I think is how you say his name, who was playing a number 6 role in the second half. I don't know if that's an indication that we'll see more of him as the season goes on, but I'd say he was the only one. And actually, compared to some of the people they played in like that first game, Elliott and Carvalho are like experienced professionals, albeit 19. And yeah, so final thoughts on kind of where we are with the preseason, and then we'll talk about what's upcoming.
I think for the most part we've looked sharpish. You could see we weren't necessarily firing on all cylinders, but there was the flashes of what we can be, and that's heartening, considering that I think, how many games is City playing? Like 2?
Yeah, not many. No.
Yeah. So, and I know that they just beat a pretty decent Bayern squad last night. So I don't think we're miles off it. I don't think we're miles off it. I think that we're pretty close to where we need to be ready for the beginning of the season. Yeah. And judging by what I've seen from some of the other teams, I think that we're probably going to be in better shape than quite a few of the teams that we're going to face. So here's to hoping that we get it right. And to Justin's point, this team is still by and large unchanged. We've sprinkled in a couple of new cogs to an already pretty well-oiled machine, and the cogs that to really label the analogy is that they seem to fit perfectly. Like they're not a million miles off what Klopp is looking for, or what he wants. That Bakatic, if you could have fooled me as being a 6, because he was on top of the 18-yard box for Carvalho's, what was it? Not for Carvalho, for Nunez's second. Was it a second one? The assist from Trent. So you had a number 6 and a right back passing within like 5 yards of the 18-yard box to the guy that eventually put it in.
Yep.
I thought that was interesting to see Trent, just as an aside on that point, is like they've really been pushing him as that inverted winger kind of role, and it seems that it's been evident in the preseason that's something that they were working on last season and they're trying to perfect now.
Yeah. It feels like that's as much to do with the Elliott being able to play that role as well. So it feels good though overall, right? Kind of where we are. I mean, I won't talk more about that in part 2 about the upcoming week, but every reason to be excited about kind of where we go next with this team. We'll leave it there, and we'll be back to talk about the upcoming week. Hey, welcome back to part 2, First State Kopites. We are going to talk about the upcoming week. I don't know which in order we're going to do this, but we've got a game against the Red Bull Salzburg, somewhere in Austria, on Wednesday, I think it is. And I think that probably gives us a good chance to see who's likely to start at Fulham. But then perhaps more interestingly, we play Man City at the King Power next Saturday afternoon, I guess UK time, because it's 12 here on the East Coast, which be the first chance certainly for our group to get back together since Champions League final. As Daz mentioned in part 1, City warmed up. They've not got many games, but they beat a Mane-less Bayern at Lambeau Field in a shortened game last night, which I think was to do with the weather. And Haaland finally made an appearance. I don't know if he did score. He also, I think, put the ball in the net and it was offside on another occasion. I don't want to take too much away from that game, but I felt very encouraged by the fact that he did not seem to do much else. And that meant that they had one less midfielder to do all that midfield stuff that they usually do. I think, Daz, you watched the game. Justin, did you see any of the game?
I saw none of it.
Okay, so I'll check in with you about that, and then I'll check in with you, Justin, about how you're feeling about playing Man City so early in the season. What did you take away from that game?
The subbing. Pep just. I felt like he was. They've lost a lot of players.
Yeah.
And by players, I mean kind of someone integral parts. I know that things with Sterling weren't going to according to Sterling's probably worldview, but it's. I don't know what it is with Pep and his substitute. Like, this is where you want to kind of plug new parts in to see what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And it came out in the wash. They won, but it's. I'm with you. I'm kind of heartened by this. Like, it's. I know that last season was a robust season to put a kind of a plain spin on it, but how prepared is he going to be for this season?
Yeah.
And look, it's Manchester City. They have a habit of coming up trumps. It's an annoying habit, to say the least. But like I'm with you. It's like they're not as sharp in the fang as you'd probably expect them to be. And to Justin's point, we're 6 days away from finding out just how true of a statement that is. I could be forced to eat my words, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think one of the other things that I felt was, and certainly, although I enjoyed the previous game they played, I think was that against Club America, where Grealish was getting kicked by everybody. I took too much pleasure from that. But the thing I noticed was like how much of the ball he had in both of those games. It was like, it wasn't quite Aston Villa levels, but it felt like this does not quite feel right for a Pep team to have one person who's maybe like the fifth most talented player having the ball so much.
It feels like the ball always has to move with them, right? Like that's where they kill you. Is they have guys who are both really gifted at carrying it and really gifted at passing and receiving it. Like that is their game. And it feels like if the game, they might be very, very good by the end of the season, but they might still also have integration problems with Holland. And that's why getting off to a big start is how we can do it for ourselves in the league. If you remember the year that we won the title, 1920, we drew in the Community Shield and lost on penalties. So I don't think that the psychology of this game will do much, because when we played them lately, also Klopp and Pep seem to hate losing to each other. So, the only game where we've had an outright result in one way or the other in recent years was the 4-1 to City's 4-1 win at Anfield when fans weren't allowed in and Liverpool had no center backs. So I don't think that you're going to learn too much from Saturday, but it would still be nice to put a marker down and beat them, because Guardiola can get into his own head really quickly about Liverpool, and that's where we need him to be.
Yeah. Well, a Darwin Nunez hat-trick would get into his head, right?
Absolutely. Like the idea of Nunez, maybe actually coming in and having a better start to life than Holland could be real fun.
Yeah.
Not saying it's going to happen, but it could be real fun if it does.
I'm interested to see the Haaland, whatever our center back pairing matchup is, because I think, again, to Justin's point, I don't think you can take a ton away from it, but I know that he's been accused of being a flat track bully, so we'll see what he looks like against an actual world class center back pairing. And he did score against a pretty good Bayern Munich squad, but it wasn't Virgil van Dijk and or Konate or Partey.
In the moments, what I did notice was Upamecano seemed to have, like, when it was like Upamecano versus Haaland did not seem like the bully that he's been portrayed, and given I think we generally can believe that Upamecano is a slightly less qualified central defender than Konate. You know, I and that's based on not only my bias, it's also based on Tim, a former contributor who was watching them both play for Leipzig for many years. That did fill me with confidence about playing against us. But it probably raised a bigger question, and we can touch on that in part in the next part, which is signing 5'9" and 5'10" defenders a good idea when you're going to face up against Haaland and Nunez? Yes, sorry, we'll speculate on that later. Okay, any more to say about the upcoming week? We don't care about the result. We've got a game the day after, which says something about how we're feeling about the importance of this game. Justin,
I think for those of us who are involved in running supporters clubs, I think the best value for this is actually that get your band back together, get ready for the season. That's the real value of this game to me.
Awesome answer. We can park the part there, Daz, or unless you have anything else to add.
No, I just wanted to reiterate what Justin was saying. It's like I'm glad it's against City, because that will bring people in and swinging from the rafters, because that's one of the things that people live for, is those kind of big matchups. And I know it's a glorified friendly, but I think because of the level of the quality of competition, it'll be more meaningful than simply like, oh, it's just a community shield. Yeah. And it's something we can play for and win, which is always nice.
But it doesn't count towards a haul of trophies, right?
Still, it's you can say that you've won something that's against immense meaningful competition.
You can. Welcome to the fourth person to the podcast there, right, with the loud bark. We should end part 2 there. It's noticeable that the Community Shield is not on our trophy wall, so that's the way it should stay. Sorry, Pep. Hey, welcome back to part 3 of First State Kopites. We've got a bunch of things we could be talking about. Not sure where this is going to go, so I'm going to kind of leave it up to you. We've clearly had complaints from certain teams and about the inadequacy of their squads this last week, which are interesting to listen to, enjoyable to listen to, quite frankly. There are a couple of teams that look like they've got their act together, and one of them is Arsenal, which feels wrong. We're also, so we could talk about a lot of things. Where do you want to go, Justin? What's top of mind in terms of things that are happening out there as the season kind of is about to get underway?
I'd like to talk about 2 teams that wear blue: Chelsea Football Club and Everton Football Club. So
how about it?
Let's go to Everton first. How do you lose 4-0 to an MLS side? I get that the MLS side is in the middle of their season and in form, but you're a Premier League team. You should be you should have a little bit more to you than that. And I think the way in which Lampard is trying to manage expectations is comical, and is only the second worst piece of man management I've seen in football this week, followed because of the existence of Tom Tuchel, who has basically said that, they're not creating chances, even though, he largely has the same players there. Yep. That should suggest it's something about your setup, Tommy.
Oh, so much rich stuff in there. What I loved, I got to talk about this, the 538, who Sean doesn't care for as much as I do, have Minnesota United ranked 268th in world football. And one of the teams that's like slightly above them is Karabag, is one of those teams that perennially gets beat up in the Champions League. Yeah, wow. So I guess what does he want to have happen next? They signed some players with money they possibly don't have. How long do we think he's going to last? Really, Daz? Sorry, Justin.
He doesn't make it to Christmas.
Ding, 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 ding.
When do we play them? Because that could be a killer moment.
It's like the 5th or 6th game of the season. It's
That's
really early.
on, yeah.
It's the Goodison Derby. It's the first one.
I listened to you probably listened to the same show, Daz, about where they talked about Darwin Nunez's 4 goals, and it's like, how many did he score? Oh, same number Minnesota United scored against Everton. And someone else said, same number of points Everton might have by Christmas.
Yeah. Look, I watched Everton against Arsenal. That Jesus move has been, it could be transformative for them.
Yeah. But
Everton are a team. I don't even the best way to put it. They're floundering. That they don't. No one wants to go there. Like, think about the amount of money that they've spent over the course of the last 5 years to be this shite. And it got to the point, it was like that Simpsons episode where their kids yelling out, "He's already dead." Like, it's kind of what it felt like watching them. Like, they barely made it out of their own half in the first half. They had one opportunity that Calvert-Lewin kind of fluffed, and it was good defensive work. But other than that, I don't think that they had a real opportunity in the first half. They were outclassed, outplayed, and they resorted to bullying. It was a really nasty, gnarly affair. Like, then Tarkowski came on and he started throwing himself about and unnecessarily towards the end of the game. It was like a really unfriendly friendly. It reminded of us playing Sevilla.
Oh, yeah.
It was just like a really just angry affair. And I don't know, man, like, they're going to struggle.
Yeah.
And Justin was talking about this. He always, Lampard, and he did the same thing when he was at Chelsea. He always seems to distance himself from results, like somehow he's not part of it.
Yeah.
Like he's been dropped in from a helicopter the day after they've lost and asked to describe why they lost. It's mate, you're their coach. And then it's excuse after excuse after excuse. And I don't think that they can get rid of Tuchel quickly enough. I think that he's at the point now, and you can see that he has a pretty long track record of being a well poisoner. And I think we're seeing the beginning of this now.
Yeah.
So but they're in a situation like, can they get rid of him? Like, who's out there? Are they going to bring Pochettino in?
Now, for the level of investment that they've put in, you're expecting something out of it, because Abramovich, he might be gone, but they've spent this summer, right? They spent a lot of money on Raheem Sterling. They're trying to spend a lot of money on Jules Koundé. He might be going to Barcelona. He might be going to Chelsea. Who knows? And then they spent a lot of money on Kalidou Koulibaly, right? Those would be 3 huge signings.
Yeah.
And you're not, you're hiring a manager who you think can win the Premier League or the Champions League, because that's what your goal has to be if you're Chelsea at this point.
Yeah. Wow, lots to say in this. Oh, by the way, if I'm Tarkowski, I'm pissed off anyway. So that's why I'm coming on kicking people. It's like, I joined this mob. I had other options out there. What?
I thought Burnley was bad.
Right. Do you think just I'm thinking about this? I hadn't thought about this till now. Is so Arsenal beats Everton, who are bad. What, 2-1?
2-0.
2-0. Oh, and then they beat Chelsea 4-0. Wow. Does this make Arsenal that good, or does this just say something about the 2 teams in blue?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we've learned too much from either of them, except for maybe Arsenal might be further ahead in their preseason. That's all.
Yeah. And we haven't had a chance to talk about United this week, but maybe we'll move on from there. So one of the things that's so complete flip of subject, unless anyone wants to kind of get into United's interesting transfer strategy, which appears to be like, anyway, let's not talk about the transfer strategy till it's completely failed at the beginning of September.
Well, you can preempt it. What are your thoughts, like, in terms of? Because I think what Sean was saying, we will invoke the name of Sean, that he just seems to be going to the Dutch well.
'If he didn't play in Eredivisie, he doesn't want to know, right? But the bizarre thing is that they've spent how long trying to sign De Jong, and multiple channels have reported that De Jong does not want to sign for Manchester United. He doesn't. In fact, they've reported he doesn't like Manchester.
Yeah.
I still don't know any way this doesn't end with him in Manchester. He's going. I feel like he's going to end up there, and it's just going to be awful for everybody involved.
Yeah,
which
hopefully.
which won't bother me in any way.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome. Yeah. So we'll talk about them more, because lots of thoughts about how they're gonna. So I've got to say one thing before we move on from them. They still haven't solved the problem of slow defenders and a goalkeeper that doesn't want to come off his line, right? Which makes it really hard to play the way that like a lot of modern teams, including us or Ajax, play. I'm going to leave it there. Let's move on to our big closing topic. Liverpool have announced in recent weeks they've made some changes to the way in which members get tickets, and I don't want to pretend I fully understand the extent of these changes, but it's certainly excited a lot of opinions. And one of the things that's certainly come out of those conversations is some negativity towards international fans, like what we are, getting tickets for Anfield, and we're also aware, obviously, of certain international fans that we know in our community who think they're entitled to a lot more than we get already. So I'll kind of leave those two things as part of the parameters. And Daz, I know you had a lot of thoughts about this. I'm going to start with you. Where do you think we are, and where do you think we should be in terms of what international fans should hope for, particularly from people who are in Liverpool, and realistically expect from the club?
I can say that almost 100% of the people that have come from our supporters group from Baltimore have viewed it as an absolute privilege to go. Never once have they said that they felt that they were entitled to these tickets. They saw it as an absolute treat, like one of those things that I wouldn't say bucket list. That's probably partially ridiculous, but it's along those lines. Like that they're just excited to be able to go and see the guys in red play at Anfield, just to immerse themselves in the culture at the stadium, the culture of the city. And that's been, and I can say this, that's 100% of the people. Not one person is like, oh man, well, we should have access to tickets. They're just excited to be able to get the ticket to go. And if they don't, they understand why. And Justin will speak to this, and I think we said this off air. It's like it's an insane amount of demand with very little, with like extremely limited supply. And I think to think that somehow we're entitled to it is ridiculous. Frankly, it's ridiculous. And on the opposite end of it, I don't think that it's fair that people slaughter international fans for wanting to do that. Like, we're an international club with international appeal. One of the reasons we have the money that we have to spend is because people are buying jerseys overseas. I know it might seem silly, but like 2 million 70 pound shirts add up to a lot of money.
Up to Carvalho at the very least, right?
Yeah. So I think it's unfair to say that no, foreigners should know their place, because by and large they do. At least like in my experience with the people that we've helped send overseas, that they come back and they're always beaming, they're always glowing, and it never fails to have a really good impact on those people. And they think about it, they'll tell their kids about it, they'll tell their family members about it, they'll buy their friends' kids their first like little wee Liverpool jersey that like they can wear in the crib. Like it's like the tangential stuff to this, like the unknowables, I guess. It's not just about going to see Liverpool, it's about what it does as a result of that. And it's I don't know. I can appreciate how people feel upset about it, but you're never going to be able to please everybody. You're not.
Yeah. And so I'll go to you obviously next, Justin. But I love that. I think the right thing is to be grateful about the opportunity rather than thinking about like how many more things we should have. very stoic. Love it. I do know people in Liverpool, and they're not always Liverpool fans that I know, and they'll say like, well, how does anyone from the US have access to tickets? Because it's really hard for us to get tickets here. And I think both ends of this thing are like slightly deluded, that that somehow you're more important because of where you're based or because of what you've done or whatever your supporters club is doing. I don't think any of those things are really helpful. You have much more experience of this than we do, Justin. So what's your take on this?
I think that for the most part, people do tend to follow the way in which Daz has approached it. Like, I think for the most part, people who request tickets through LFCNY know that it's not a guarantee. We make it clear that it's not a guarantee that you're going to get tickets. If we just happen to, get the game that you asked for, and then you might actually get a ticket depending on how many we were allocated. Right? Everybody who goes knows that this is a benefit of like joining a supporters club, but it's not the only reason to do so, right? Like your supporters clubs are supposed to be built as communities in your own areas too, right? That's more of why I'm into this, is I like building a community. But I do think that it's good of the club to provide ticketing. I think that there are things they can do better, right? And that's one of those things that obviously all the supporters clubs are trying to work with the club on. But I don't think one of the things that they can do better is realistically make, you can't invent more seats. The Anfield Road end will build the capacity of the stadium to 62,000 for a match day, but there are several 100 million Liverpool supporters in the world.
Yeah.
Right. There's the amount, if you add up the amount of home gates at Anfield, it doesn't work out to 500 million people per season per game. You're always going to have a situation where you have a team that's really good, demand for tickets is really high, they're going to be hard to get. And if the further away you live, the harder it becomes to go because of the amount of cost you have to incur in doing it. So I don't think that anybody, should view it as an entitlement. It's a benefit. And if you get to do it, which I have, like, it's incredibly fun, and I highly recommend it, but you should never take it for granted. Mm-hmm. The other thing I will say is around, the other side is I've obviously met a lot of Scousers when I've been over there. Every single one of them that I've met has been, very welcoming, very gregarious. It's the Scouts, charm that that they're a bit famous for. And I can see that, Paul, where you're going to say that they're, what you're saying about people who complain about how international people get tickets when, that's because everybody's gonna have a complaint about something. But the reality is, most people who I've met are more interested in finding out why you're a Liverpool supporter and just trying to embrace that than they are asking, where did you get the ticket from and why did you get that and not me?
So I love your balance. By the way, the person I have in mind who said this, they're not the only one, but they have she is an Evertonian and her son is a Liverpool fan, and he had real hard time getting tickets for games, and he still does. It's like he kind of has to find them somewhere else. So that was what her comment was about. But it's not unique, but it does seem to be, it's not people who are fans of the team as much as it's people who kind of live in the city and somehow, I don't know, probably resent Liverpool actually as much as anything else.
Yes, those people are called Evertonians.
You're right. It fuels the fire. Yes.
More like everyone Tonians. Everyone seems to hate us.
Well, that's a much bigger topic. I loved your answers. It made me feel really grounded about this because I feel like I've seen a lot of stuff, heard a lot of stuff that sort of was like out there about where tickets should go and what people's entitlement should be. I think we should bring this to a close. Any final thoughts, Justin?
No, just really excited for the season. Really excited to get back to our our bars and our members and get this thing going. Off season's over.
Yeah, I love that thought. So next time we record, we'll have hung out with people cheering for Liverpool in groups. Yeah, love it. Daz, final thought with you.
I think that we should pay some homage to to our ex-CEO and 51% share owner, David Moores. It was he was a good one.
Yeah.
And I know that he regretted to his dying day selling it to Gillette and Hex, and I think you said something to the effect of it could have been so much more. He was well loved, well respected, and at 76, that's a pretty good innings, but still feels like he's gone too soon.
Yeah. There's no doubt that he loved this football team, and that probably played into his regret about who ended up owning it. David Moores, rest in peace. We're going to leave it there. We will be back next week after Liverpool have played a couple more preseason games, including the Community Shield. Thank you so much, Daz. Thank you so much, Justin, for joining us. That's it for this week. Hey, thanks for joining Haitham and me, Paul, on this special edition where we're looking at the exciting Women's Euros. We've just got through 4 quarterfinals, which finished up on Saturday. And I think one of the reasons we're doing this kind of separate segment is because if you haven't watched these games, you've only got 3 games left to see what you've been missing. We'll talk about the standard. We think it's very high. We might argue about exactly where it measures, but I think there's no doubt it's at a far higher level technically than MLS. Let's start there. So Hayden, what we're going to do is we're going to review all 4 of the quarterfinals, and then spend a few minutes at the end looking at kind of what we think will happen in the semifinals. But let's start with I think the game that we probably chatted most about was France and Netherlands, which is the last of the games. There's some weird numbers for this game. I think France outshot Netherlands kind of something like 3-1. I think it was 30 odd to 9. They had an XG, which there's some question mark about how they calculate. Well, they use men's stats to calculate the women's XG, which is a bit weird. But the XG of France was 4.69. And somehow they needed a penalty to win it. Well, I guess the penalty was 0.75 of that 4.69. They also have the leader in the tournament for attempts on goal, which is Wendy Renard, and she still hasn't scored, by the way. But they looked, apart from on the goal side, they looked a really, really competent team. What stood out to you about them as we think about the kind of their chances maybe of winning the whole thing?
Yeah. Before I start talking about that game, I just wanted to go back to your standard per se, which you said. I think, personally, it's more exciting and just a pleasure to watch. I would think more than the bottom 12 teams in the Premier League. So that's just me.
Yeah. I could see that. Yeah. I mean, certainly, there was way more quality on view than there was in the Minnesota United Everton game the other day.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Yeah, but the match was really good. I think it kind of highlighted, or in line with how France has played in the tournament. They just, except for that first match, they've always created chances, and just managed to miss a lot of chances. And I would think even their last group match, which ended up in a draw with Iceland, I thought they should have won easily by 2 or 3, and it kind of carried over to this match, the quarterfinal. I think it's very obvious that they are missing Katoto, their number 9, who got injured earlier in the tournament. So they tried to play Millard in there, and she's good. She runs behind the line. She's always in good positions, but her finishing touch is not there. And you know, a big reason is she's pretty young. I think she's the youngest French goal scorer, if I'm not mistaken. So she's and then you know, even when in the second half when they made a change and put Diani up there, and Diani is fantastic, by the way. I mean, the way she was just doing the link up from defense to offense and taking players over. It's so hard to take the ball away from her.
Yeah.
But they put her, you know, up top, and she basically lost her influence in the match. Then towards the end, they subbed in Sar, who's you know, quick player, quick number 9. Again, just missing you know, that final touch. I think she had like a couple of chances where it was in front of goal, but she mishit most of all of them pretty much. But yeah, it's a team. France, that is, it's a team full of aggressive, talented player. Karshawi on the left back is just phenomenal. And then Basha came in the
Yeah.
second half, and she just, because it kind of got stagnant towards the end of the first half. But Basha came in, and she created a lot of chances. She had a few shots. Also, I don't want to forget Cascarino, because she's just, you know, I feel like, you know, she's the best player on that team. And she, I think she had one shot that hit the post. And she's just, I think, you know, if she works, I don't know if she needs to work on her finishing, but if she gets better at it, you know, she can be scoring so many goals at whatever tournament she's in, even the league.
I think it's certainly fair to say that they all need to work on their finishing, right? Because without Katoto, they do look like they're going to, they might struggle to score. You know, a few different things I think that were. I mean, just the depth they seem to have. Actually, just I'd only seen Baka from Lyon play once, and that was in the Champions League final, what, about a month ago. She looked. I don't know. It's like, why wasn't she in the starting 11? Well, the starting 11 wasn't bad. I think
Mateo too. Mateo,
Yeah.
I thought Mateo is, you know,
Mhm.
has been their best midfielder, and I didn't know why she did not start that match. You know, I thought maybe she's suspended, maybe she's injured, and then I think 10 minutes before the end of the match, she was, you know, on the touchline getting ready to come in. I'm just like, what happened there? And actually, the assist, the pass, you know, that led to the penalty was from her. That's the type of player that she is. She's really good at finding openings and moving the ball.
Yeah, and the coach came into the tournament with a reputation for being someone who fell out with people and dropped stars, because there's a whole collection of people who weren't actually in the 22. But I think just looking at it from, I think one of the things to say about the French actually is, I think Gayoro's got a hat trick in the first game, and this looked, in terms of her stats, a complete anomaly. And I think her misses, well, the miss the other day suggested that, yes, indeed, the hat trick was quite an anomaly in terms of her, which is unfortunate, because they definitely need someone to take the chances that they're creating. It's worth giving a bit of credit, though, to a couple of people in the Dutch team. I think the Dutch goalie Van Damselaar, who came in to the tournament with one cap, and at kind of one level made some excellent saves, and several from Wendy Renard, who we mentioned, and then Van der Graft. It's hard to know, really. Was she in the right place at the right time, or was like Mallard a bit panicked about where she was hitting the shots? Anyway, she clearly got in the way of a couple of shots, and I think was quite, through the game, probably broke up a couple of the attacks that were really dangerous. So there was some.
She tried to play in the offense towards the end of the match, just because she's a little bit taller, but then they have Ronaldo.
Yeah.
Just for headers, from crosses and all that stuff. But the interesting thing to me is the fact that she doesn't have a team at this point, because she lastly played for Ajax, and I think they haven't renewed her contract. So I guess the silver lining is it's a really good display that club teams in Europe and anywhere else can look at her, even here in the States.
Yeah.
Can look at her and be like, hey, this is a player that still got a lot to give, and maybe they will take her in their squads.
So one interesting thing actually was anytime they mentioned someone who was available, I was thinking, oh, should Liverpool be picking them up? Should Liverpool? Because Liverpool already picked up a Dutch, I think, striker who did not make this squad but has been in previous squads.
Yeah, and then just one thing is another thing about the Dutch team, just Miedema, and even before she got COVID, she just did not put her stamp on this tournament.
Yeah.
And I understand, once she got COVID, and even I don't look down on her for this last match, being isolated, quarantined, and depending on how hard COVID hit her, she basically gets a pass. But just overall, even before she got sick, I don't think she performed to the levels that we've seen her perform, whether with the Dutch team or as a number 9 for Arsenal.
Yeah. So I think it seems the consensus seems to be that she had symptoms that meant that she was out for 2 games. So I mean, in terms of the tournament, although the games have been really good, you can imagine how much better they might have been had Putellas been available for Spain and Katoto not ended up injured and Miedema not had COVID. I mean, obviously there are plenty of other players, and we'll talk about some of them as we go through. But that's quite a lot of big names or talented players to lose. So we'll come back to France when we talk about semi-finals, because clearly, if they could score goals, they are incredibly dangerous. Let's kind of touch on Spain against England. I know that you're kind of very happy that Spain are in the tournament, but in many ways there were some parallels with the France-Netherlands game in terms of the team probably with slightly more ability in terms of holding onto the ball. Maybe Spain are slower than France in this respect, but they certainly had a lot of possession. And I think, well, where do we start? I think first half, Spain had gone in a couple of goals ahead. Then England, I don't think, could have complained. As it was, they only ended up scoring early in the second half, and I think the chance was created by Del Castillo, who then succeeded in making Rachel Daly look like the left back that she isn't, apparently. Apparently she plays forward for, I think it's Houston Dash, I think I read somewhere. So and then
I'm pretty sure when I slowed down the replays for a couple of encounters between Del Castillo and Rachel Daly, pretty sure I saw her soul leave her body a couple of times and then go back. Because she made a meal out of those encounters.
And she, I think it was her almost scored with that chip that the England goalie Mary who plays for Manchester United, it so happens, she managed to just about keep out. I thought England looked, there was something happened, and it could have been around the changes, because England, I thought, looked much better with Rousseau and heading up the attack, and Alex Greenwood, who is from Liverpool, playing at left back. And they also brought on, I think, a different winger. They took off Mead, brought on Chloe Kelly. I thought she created more problems for them. And it's hard to know whether it was the changes or whether it was Spain decided they could hold on, which they nearly did, frankly, to the 1-0.
I think it was a combination of the two. I think a couple of players really had bad matches or bad performances. I mean, she was, I think in the first half, she was not tracking back because the right hand side was just troublesome for England, and I felt like um, Lucy Bronze basically just took the brunt of everything going on that side, and again, White as a number 9, she wasn't doing much. I think she had maybe a chance, and again, just doing a quick comparison with Renard, it just felt like her aim was off when it comes to headers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think definitely the changes in the second half helped England. And I mean, we saw what happened when it went into extra time. But yeah, I mean, it was if again, if results are just the outcome of performances, yeah, Spain should have won. But then it's just sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's teams that lack players, influential players like um, Pateas, just. But the number 9 that came in, I forgot her name at this point, of course.
For England?
For Spain.
Spain.
I thought she did pretty well. She plays for not Atletico. Sorry, I forgot her name. But I thought she did well. I thought she had a couple of chances. And I was just wondering, like, I think the coach started with a number 9, which is again was different from the rest of the matches in the tournament. But I thought the substitute that came in towards the end of the match and at the beginning of the extra time, I thought she was better, just from a movement perspective. Um, I'll find her name.
Yeah, I can't recall who that was, because I thought that sort of Spain felt like they got kind of less effective. I thought as the game went on. Once England scored, I don't recall too many opportunities. A couple of things I was going to ask you about, though, if you please find the name of who the player, the number 9.
I'll find her.
Couple of thoughts, though. Spain seemed very aggrieved about the first goal, feeling that Paredes was fouled by Russo. What were your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's one of those things that could go either way. It's not. I've seen it given before. I mean, just the first incident that pops in my head was a Liverpool match, I think a couple of years ago, where the same thing kind of happened. Not the same thing, but a similar thing happened to Lovren. Some player pushed them.
Yeah. And
I can't remember who it was against. It was a Premier League match. Just give him like a shove or something like that, and VAR looked at it and actually disallowed the goal. So it could have gone either way. But again, things happen so fast, and those types of things, just going back to our, issues with VAR, the ref might not see it, but I'm sure, they check pretty much every goal. And I'm sure, they see it the same way we see it, the replays, slowed down, all of that stuff. But to me, yeah, it could have gone either way. I wouldn't have had an issue with it if it was given as a foul, but again, just some blunder by VAR.
I'm not sure what you're going to get from VAR. I thought early in the tournament they were doing great, and then it started taking 5 minutes, not almost literally 5 minutes over some of the calls. And well, we'll touch on it. I know you didn't see the Sweden game, and I'd forgotten about it when we first spoke. But I'm not sure Blackstenius was offside in that game against Belgium. It looked to me like they're drawing the lines wrong. But anyway, we're off on a VAR tangent, which is never a good place to be.
Yeah.
I think Esther Gonzalez was the number 9 you mentioned.
Yes. All right. Yes.
It came on, and then obviously England scored what in England people are thinking is like one of the greatest goals ever seen. I think when we talked about it, some question marks about the defending, about how much space he was given and allowed to run.
I know.
Yeah.
Everyone was tracking back.
Mm.
It was just like, what are you guys doing? Someone should step up to her. But I guess, they were trying to, I think you mentioned it in our chats or something like that, that they were trying to cover, the wingers or.
I think that's what I think was going on. Yeah, it wasn't that they were like, oh, just let her run. They were like, she's going to give the ball to somebody who's really dangerous, and in the moment, it discounted the fact that she could be dangerous. So.
Right. Yeah, it was, one of those things. I mean, to be honest, you mentioned that I'm happy Spain is not in the tournament.
Yeah.
But I would have been fine if they won, just because I thought the way they controlled that match, I think they deserve to win. And again, I'm not a big fan of England, by the way. So it's like I didn't know, I didn't have a team to root for. I was just trying to enjoy the football itself.
So final thing we'll say about Spain, that Bonmarte looks a really, really great player. I heard Michael Cox of The Athletic suggest that she may be the best player in the tournament at this point, given there's no Putellas, for example. But she looked really, really good. A bit of a shorter run on the other games. I'll just summarize the Sweden Belgium game. It felt to me like Sweden struggled in this one, but I kind of went back and looked at the stats, and they actually had 33 shots to Belgium's 3. Belgium didn't have one on target. And I think one of the big differences was that the goalkeeper, Belgium's goalkeeper, was outstanding. And apparently she's so that they do that expected goals for goalies versus actual. She's kind of +9 in the positive in terms of goals that she has helped Belgium avoid. And I think that probably puts into context that probably Belgium were the weakest team in the last 8.
Mm-hmm.
But Sweden had to rely on a last-minute goal, which came from the defender Sembrant. But honestly, there was the offside goal, but there were so many chances where it felt like, somehow it all ended with Everard on the ball and like the forwards looking around, not understanding why the ball hadn't gone in. So I think Sweden, may be in better shape than perhaps the result against Belgium suggests. Well, let's finish off quarterfinal review and talk about Germany, Austria. Again, with the benefits of hindsight, it felt at the time that Austria really were in this game, and then you kind of go back and look at the key moments. So at least one of because they hit the woodwork 3 times, Austria. Mm-hmm. At least one of them, hit the top of the bar. I think it wasn't, so it wasn't that close. It wasn't like the Cascarino shot, which cannoned back, kind of diagonally across the penalty box. So what was your take anyway on the Germany Austria game, and who stood out for you?
Yeah, I mean, another great match to watch. I really enjoyed it. Germany, just like they've always been, just a machine. Good defenders in the middle. Pop, up front is pretty prolific. What the second goal was just, that was her third goal in the same way, where she would, it's like, a team trying to play out the back to give it to the goalie, and then she rushes the goalie and they hit it against her. I think, the commentator said that was the third time she did that, which is amazing. Yeah. And the way she's built, she's just, she's very tall, very athletic. And again, I think they're top scorer, 4 goals.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was you know, great to watch. I thought the goalie for Austria was pretty good too. She plays in the WSL, by the way. I think for trying to remember which team, but I know she plays in
I do recall that.
the one of the top teams here. Um, but you know, I thought she did well, except for you know that gaff, which you know happens. I mean, best goalies do it all the time. Zach Steffen. But yeah, it's just in line with the rest of the matches where it's close games and even the better teams, you know, struggle at times to close the matches out. So I enjoyed watching it. Um, there's another player for Germany, Bull. I
Clara
thought,
Bull, yeah,
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 yeah. I mean, I thought she was really good.
yeah.
Um,
Although I'm sure she'd have loved that chance at the end back.
yeah,
But
yeah. I can.
felt bad for her getting dragged off because obviously it was premeditated. It wasn't they took her off because she missed, but
I know. I
it's a good way
know.
to leave.
I know. There were a few misses like that throughout the tournament where it's just like point blank and it just goes the other way. I saw a couple in the other tournament actually, which no one is talking a lot about. WAFCON, the women's AFCON, uh, plenty of misses like that where it's just you know open goal sometimes and you know the player just mishits it and goes you know either over the post or to the side or whatever. So yeah.
Well, you know, Timo Werner does it on a regular basis, and I'm sure he's played a lot more than any of these people. But Manuela Zinsberger is the Austrian goalie, and apparently she plays for Arsenal, which I did not know.
I thought you played in here in the States.
It's according to Wikipedia, it says she plays for Arsenal.
Oh,
All right. We'll fact check that.
yeah.
Make
I'm
it
pretty
up.
sure the commentators, not only once, but a couple of times say that she plays in the States. But
But
we could,
yeah, so I guess there's a difference between WSL and NWSL.
yeah, maybe, yeah. Uh,
So before we're done, we'll take a quick look ahead at the games this week. I noticed you were going to make some mention of kind of I don't know, winners and losers in the tournament. So it's
yeah.
controversial, but
Yeah, I you know, I was in two, uh, you know, just items when it comes to, you know, being impressed, basically. So there's the left winger of Iceland, John Stoddard. She plays for Wolfsburg, and she is pretty just amazing to watch. I watched her the first time actually in the She Believes tournament. I think it was a few months ago here in the States.
yeah.
Um, pretty fast, pretty skilled, young. So her finishing touch is not there, but I think she just has like I mean, I hope, you know, it remains or it goes that way. She's going to have a bright future. And then Lucy Bronze from England, just an amazing midfielder. I'm so glad that she's not a
You know,
player
she's
for.
the right back. You know, she's the right back. I know
Yeah,
where she
yeah,
plays, but
yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm mentioning this because I listened to a podcast this morning where someone was making a comparison between her and Trent, in that you know they're very kind of influential in games, but because they often high up the pitch, they get blamed when there are problems.
yeah. They appear like they're midfielders or whatever.
Yeah,
But yeah, she's just so versatile, and you know, I think Barcelona, which I hate to say, is getting a really good player.
yeah.
And then just from a disappointment standpoint, obviously Norway, the whole team and the coaching staff, I had, it felt like they did not have a clue what was going on, how they were happening. And obviously their defense is was in shambles basically. I had higher expectations for them. I did not see them losing 8-0 to England.
No.
And that, another, just to dig in deeper, Ada
Edinburgh,
Hedberg,
yeah.
yeah, she's not. I mean, this is a player who was a Ballon d'Or
Yeah.
winner a couple of years ago.
Mm.
I thought she did not perform again to, her levels at this tournament, and it could be, just the fact that they were weaker behind her, but
Yeah.
she did not shine at all.
To-
Kind
to
of
be-
like I go ahead, sorry.
I was saying, to be fair to her, I thought she was really influential in the Champions League final for Lyon.
She was. That's why I was like
Yeah.
surprised that she was not as visible as
Yeah.
what we're used to, basically. And then last but not least, from a disappointment standpoint, just Wendy Renard's aim as the tallest. I think she's the tallest player in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Julie Foudy described her as 8 foot tall. I'm pretty sure she's not 8 foot tall, but
No,
obviously
she's not, but I mean, she towers everyone, on the pitch whenever she plays.
Yeah.
And I get it, it's marking, it's all of that, but even in this last match in the quarterfinals, I think she had like 4 or 5 headers from corners.
She was getting closer though. I mean, that last save, I think, from Van Domselaar was a pretty good one. So maybe she's tuning up for the semis.
Yeah, hopefully. And then she missed that penalty, which is, everyone misses penalties.
Yeah.
But that was, I guess, her chance to score.
Yeah. It was probably the follow-up miss that was probably worse, actually.
Yeah, that too. But defensively, she's fantastic. I have nothing bad to say about her defense.
Yeah. Well, the English commentary, I noticed we're trying to say bad things about the French defense, about them not looking that solid. But I don't know. They conceded a goal in each of the qualifiers, I suppose, and then when it mattered, they did not concede against the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe we'll start with them then. French Germany. Do we think this follows the pattern of the Spain Germany game, where Germany sits a bit deeper? I thought one really interesting thing, and I'll leave it to you to kind of give us a sense of what you think about that game. But Latvian and Zabritz both play for Lyon, which I thought was interesting. I don't know what kind of influence that will have. There are obviously a lot of Swedish players who play in the Women's Super League in England as well. Again, wonder what influence that will have.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any kind of influence when it comes to that, club play. I mean, these guys would kick the crap out of each other.
So I think it was more about knowing like how people play, so that there's less surprise factor.
Yeah. I mean, I can see that, but I don't think it's going to be a big factor. Me personally, I think it's going to be just in line with the rest of the matches in the knockout stage. It's going to be a great match. My worry for France is something that we talked about. It's just the fact that they don't have good finishers and they're missing a number 9, which is not an issue per se with Germany. And that's the only reason why I'm giving Germany just a slight advantage. But I'm looking forward to it. I'll to be honest, I'm going to be transparent. I'm going to be rooting for France just because they've been my team throughout the tournament, and because no pun intended, they're the only African team in the Euros. So that's why I'm rooting for them. I know if any French viewers or listeners are listening, I'm sorry. I'm just joking.
They're certainly a more diverse team than like pick one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it on the face of it, Germany look a bit more solid than anyone France has faced so far. So I think it will be a tougher test, and if they don't find a way to score, that's going to present problems, obviously, for Germany. I did hear some French pundit saying he was hoping for penalties. So I don't know if that means they're not very confident.
Yeah, that's what it looks like.
But you think Germany in that one. So finally, then England, Sweden. I think we talked about this. Goals haven't come easily for Sweden. Although I think Blackstenius, who's one of those, I think she plays for Arsenal. Looked really sharp to me. I think England obviously have a lot of players who potentially can score, but I don't know. They don't seem the most mobile defense, and they play a very high line. So it's not like and they're playing with a Virgil van Dijk or someone like that. So for me, I think Aslani, Rollo, and Blackstenius, England really gonna have to be aware of them, because the more space they seem to have, the more dangerous they seem to be. They're not great against a low block, but actually have been quite good against teams. As you might recall from the Olympics, they beat the US. In part, I think, because they had more space to work with than when they ended up playing Canada in the final, who defended pretty deep and ended up winning on penalties.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I think it's not. It might be, or my vision for that match is it's gonna be closer to the Spain-England match than anything else.
Yeah.
Tactical. And then Sweden more than I do. Or you've watched them more than I've done. But do they like to keep the ball? Do the tiki-taka thing?
I think they're better overall. So what's my sample size? Not big, right? There's not been that many games, but I think the games where they played, like when they played against Holland, Netherlands, for example, excuse me, it seemed to me easier for them to play their game than when they played the game against Belgium, where they constantly had the ball and were trying to find ways to score with a team that was sat quite deep.
Yeah, and that's one thing that England is not going to do.
Right.
They're not going to sit deep. So yeah, hopefully it's going to be just an open match, and just looking forward to it. I still give England the edge. If it has, and probably it has nothing to do with just who the better team is. Obviously England, like you said earlier, has better strikers, better goal scorers, but they also have the home team advantage or whatever. The crowd is behind them. Everyone wants it to come home, all of that stuff. So
yeah,
I don't know if that's going to affect Sweden by any chance or any means, but yeah, I give England the advantage. But I'll be rooting for Sweden to win, I guess, on that one.
Well, I think when we talked about it last time, I think Enrique said the same, that Sweden are a dangerous team. They've been in kind of quite a few finals, so they've certainly had experience of that. Which I know that there are not many players of the other teams who've been in finals recently. I know Germany have won the tournament a lot, but they've not won a recent edition. England, I think we know, have not won any of the major tournaments. I think France have a victory somewhere in the past, but it's not with the recent team. So I think your point about the crowd do seem to be more empathetic than the men's crowd have been historically with the England team, which should work in their favor. But yeah, so you're favoring England Germany final?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's how I see it.
So we'll be back. We'll probably do a special edition again next week after the finals, where no doubt we'll be talking about the Sweden-France final, which will be an absolute epic. Right. Haitham, it's been lovely. Thank you very much for joining me. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Paul.
If you enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend. Follow us at First State Kopites on Twitter. We only tweet and retweet from sources we think are credible. Finally, music is courtesy of Hypnotic. They're a Welsh electro-pop band, and you can find them at https://hyperfollow.com/hypnotic. Hypnotic is HYPENOTIC. Thanks so much to them.